Greetings, everyone. This is John here, and I'm very, very happy to talk to you again through this channel, Biblical Leadership Institute. This is our third episode in our 10-part series on biblical leadership principles. If you have not heard the first two episodes, the first one on leaders and words, and the second one on the 4P principles of leadership, I'll put the link here or in the description. You can check that out. I strongly urge you to watch those videos so that you get the continuity. Today, in our third episode, we're going to look at another interesting topic. It is called Lead from the Front. I'm excited and hope you're excited too. Let's jump right in. It's unquestionably true that leaders lead from the front. A leader not only leads from the front, the team follows the leader. And that's why the decision that a leader takes defines the course of the team itself. A team without a great leader to lead from the front can be compared to a car without a steering wheel. Imagine if a car does not have a steering wheel. It's got an engine, it's got wheels, it can drive and etc., but it lacks focus, it lacks direction. It'll go here and there and finally crash and fail. That's why a leader leading from the front is so important. The Bible talks about so many leaders who led from the front, many who succeeded, many who failed. And today we're going to read about one of the outstanding leaders in the Bible called King David, and how he failed to lead from the front, and what are the calamities that followed after. What are the lessons you and I can learn from it? Talking about David, David was born in a very average middle class family, and he had a very meager occupation. He herded sheep, and he was so committed to his job as a shepherd that he led the sheep from the front and made sure they were safe. He, in his own words, says that he chased away lions and bears. He caught the lion by the hair and struck it, and he did so many heroic things with animals just to protect his sheep, his herd. That's how a leader should be. Well, this David was so impressive in the job that he did that even God chose him to lead Israel itself. In 2 Samuel 8:15 it says, David reigned all over Israel, doing what was just and right for all his people. Which means he settled down, he did everything, and finally it's time for him to relax. As you know, I'm reading this from my book, 10 Pragmatic Leadership Principles from the Bible. I've put the link to purchase it on Amazon in the description. Now, the way I've done is every chapter has leadership quotes here and there to emphasize leadership principles. And the leadership quote that I wrote for this particular passage goes like this. It's not handling failure, but managing success that tends to be most challenging for humans. It's a true fact because you and I can easily handle failure, whereas handling success and fame is the most difficult for humans. There are so many people who have fallen because of fame than failure. We're going to read through David's life and his success and see how he failed as a leader from the top. The passage that I'm going to refer to is 2 Samuel 11. Now, this chapter contains so many critical information such that I'm going to dissect each phrase or sentence so that we get a clear picture of what's happening in the background. So, point number 1, 2 Samuel 11:1 says, in the springtime when kings go off to war. I'm going to pause there and talk about this particular passage. It says, in springtime when kings go off to war. It's an intriguing statement because apparently in those olden days, whenever there was a time for war, the kings looked at the season. If it was summer, it was too sunny and the soldiers get tired, they need a lot of water. It's not an ideal time. Winter, it's too cold. Instead of ammunition, they have to carry a lot of warm clothing and other stuff. But in spring, apparently the most comfortable time for kings to go off to war. There's abundance of water, the weather is good, everything looks so feasible for war. So it was a time for war, and at that time, in point number 2, 2 Samuel 11:1 says, in the later part of that verse says, David sent out Joab, his commander, out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. But David remained in Jerusalem. This is where we need to emphasize more that he sent off his team to battle the enemy, and then he stayed back in the confines of his luxurious palace. My question is, what happened to the great David who led his sheep against wild animals like lions and tigers and bears, and who actually used his own hands to protect his flock at a time when his team needed the most in the battlefield? He sent them to go and fend for themselves while he stayed back in a luxurious abode. Again, a leadership comment. David triumphed when faced with threat, failure, and jealousy, but at the feet of luxury and fame, he started slacking, which is very, very obvious. Point number 3, 2 Samuel 11:2 says, one evening, I emphasize one evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. Again, it's very intriguing to me that when his team is battling an enemy in the war field, the boss, the leader, stayed in a luxurious palace back in his hometown. And not only that, the Bible says one evening David got up from his bed, which signifies that this guy was actually sleeping the entire day. And one evening he got up and then he walked on the palace roof because he didn't have anything to do. He just took a stroll. When I was young and when I was in a team working as a developer, chasing a deadline and all of that, I had amazing bosses who stayed with the team and made sure they helped in any way possible. They may not have helped hands-on by writing code or helping with the project itself, but they were there to help support the team, sometimes even making coffee, buying pizza, etc. And that's the mark of a true leader. A leader never lets the team fight for themselves. They are there, they give the confidence, and they help the team. David, on the other hand, appeared completely oblivious about his team's anguish back in the field and slacked carelessly at his luxurious abode. Point number 4, 2 Samuel 11:2-3. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful. So the point to note here is he didn't go to the battlefield, he slept the whole day, and when he woke up, an ideal thing that he should have done is to call his subordinates, the messengers, and say, give me an update on the war. What's happening? I need to see what's going on. A good leader does that. When the team is working on something, the team is concentrated on how to achieve or how to complete it. Whereas the leader is there looking far into the future, evaluating what could go wrong. We call it contingency plans, right? And that's why Proverbs 27:12 says, the prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. So the prudence of a leader is looking into the future and making sure everything is all right and being prepared for things that might go wrong. Another leadership quote, if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, you will invariably end up with a bathing Bathsheba. Now, who is Bathsheba? The definition that I've written is Bathsheba is a distraction that is placed to deflect you from your specified sacred goal. Bathshebas are so beautiful and alluring that we would almost compromise on our integrity and our values just to acquire a Bathsheba. Mind you, this is the same David who, in his entire life, had an interaction with so many women. Um, Saul's daughter, Nabal's wife, Abigail, so many women came across in his life. But nowhere the Bible says that David saw and felt that that woman was beautiful. This is the first time he sees and he finds that woman beautiful. Again, a leadership quote: leaders are torchbearers of the mission and goals. They cannot slack, especially when the team is firefighting. Among everybody in the team, the leader should be the one who's an eagle eyed focus on the vision and drive the team towards that, which David clearly failed. Point number 5, 2 Samuel 11:3. David sent someone to find out about her. David should have sent his messengers to go inquire about the war, the strategy, the status, and things that can be done or shouldn't be done, all the analysis. Instead, the great king sent people to inquire about a woman whom he saw bathing and whom he found beautiful. He later found that it was Uriah's wife, and Uriah was his own team member who's fighting in the battlefield. This king, who's supposed to be leading his team, instead of leading, is in an illicit relationship with his own team member's wife. Point number 6, 2 Samuel 11:5 says, the woman conceived and sent a word to David saying, I am pregnant. In verse 4, the Bible says that Bathsheba was purifying herself of her monthly period. So, anatomically speaking about a woman's body, it's the first 15 days after her period is when she has a high probability of getting pregnant. And the next 15 days is when she can confirm the pregnancy when she misses her next period. So if you actually put them all in a calendar of events, you'll know that it almost took 30 days for her to find out that she was pregnant. And she sent a word to David that she was pregnant, which means there has been a 30-day interval where he continued having an illicit relationship with another man's wife while his team was fighting for him against a fearful enemy. David did not seem to have cared about his injured or suffering soldiers back in the battlefield. Instead, he was devoting his time to something else than his purpose and vision. Number 7, King David to evil plotter David. 2 Samuel 11:6-14. What transpired after the news of the pregnancy is utter chaos. David wanted to somehow put the blame of the pregnancy on Bathsheba's husband Uriah. So he called him back from the war. And the Bible says he intoxicated him with a lot of wine so that in his drunkenness he would go and lie with his wife. Unfortunately for David, this Uriah was a man of integrity. According to me, I think Uriah is the most underrated person in the Bible. He stood in his integrity and values like nobody else. This man, when he came back after a month, away from his wife, fighting, he comes back to his palace, to his beautiful wife. And even though he was drunk, he still held on to his values and said, how can I go and enjoy with my wife while my teammates are fighting in the battlefield? Look at the contrast between David and Uriah. I'm so surprised that David, who knew God, who had talked to God, who was God's heart's own person, not having that integrity, while Uriah had that integrity. And the Bible says he himself wrote a letter to Joab, the commander, suggesting that Uriah be placed in the fiercest part of the battle so that he gets killed. He took the letter, handed it over to Uriah, and asked him to deliver it to Joab. Again, we need to look at Uriah's integrity. He could have opened the letter secretly, read the message before delivering it to Joab. But this guy did not. He carried his own death warrant and innocently gave it to Joab. Imagine if he had gone out of his integrity and read the letter, he would have saved his own life. But he did not. He went and gave it to Joab. And as planned, he was placed in the most fiercest part of the battle and he was killed. Point number 8. This is the most critical part of this turn of events, is evil cake cheating subordinates. 2 Samuel 11:18-25. I have a leadership quote here that says, "A team adores a great leader." How true. I personally believe that is a single most significant sign that a leader is successful, if the team members adore a leader. Because a leader with integrity will inadvertently have a team that holds high integrity and values. Now, if you take a team that has a corrupt leader, when something goes wrong, the team would not take the responsibility or would not be scared of the repercussions because they know their leader is corrupt. A very similar thing happened in the life of David also. Now, Joab, according to 2 Samuel 11:17-21, he made a very wrong decision which resulted in a lot of people dying on the Israelite side. If you actually look at this whole scenario, there are only 3 people who know about David's sin. David himself, Bathsheba, and Joab, because of Uriah and the letter that David sent him. Now he knows that his boss does not have the moral grounds to implicate him if he does something wrong. So he manipulated the whole situation and he instructed his messengers to tell David to pass the message that Uriah is dead, so that David is not angry at his own mistakes. 2 Samuel 11:25, David told the messengers who conveyed the message, the bad news that many people have died and Uriah died, that say this to Joab, "Do not let this upset you. The sword devours one as well as another. Press the attack against the city and destroy it. Say this to encourage Joab." Instead of reprimanding his teammate who had done something wrong, this David sends encouraging words because he's part of his evil plan, and since Joab helped him accomplish his evil plan. Again, leaders, watch out. Your lack of integrity will negatively impact your team's integrity, which is something that every leader should always bear in mind. All in all, everything could have been avoided if David chose to lead from the front. He wouldn't have slept all day. He wouldn't have walked carelessly on the roof. He wouldn't have set his eyes on Bathsheba. He wouldn't have impregnated her. He wouldn't have plotted to kill Uriah. And in the end, David won the war. But my question is it a victory to be savored? Uriah's parents lost a wonderful son. Bathsheba lost a great husband. David himself lost one of the best or valuable team members. Now, what is the celebration for? It was all won at the cost of lots of lives and the integrity of a great leader. So leaders, if you do not hold on to integrity, if you do not stand there in the front defending and fighting for your team, it will negatively impact your team. After all this happened, I like the way this episode ends in 1 Samuel 11:27. But the thing David had done displeased the Lord. I strongly encourage all leaders to not be in a place where we do things that displeases the Lord. Hope we learned valuable lessons from David's life as a leader and his lack of leadership when he failed to lead from the front. Thank you. If you want to be notified of future videos, please subscribe and hit the bell icon. And if you want to order my book 10 Pragmatic Leadership Principles from the Bible, I have put the link below in the description. Until we meet again in another video like this, this is John signing off. God bless you.